Americans for Fair Taxation presents the weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, president of Americans for Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, June 5th, 2026. Why the FAIRtax is more ethical than the present income payroll tax system. Ethics is the branch of philosophy that deals with questions of right and wrong conduct, moral duty, justice, fairness, and the principles that should guide human behavior. Ethics asks, what should we do and why is it right to do it? Now, ethics focuses on moral standards, not just government rules. It's the study and application of moral principles that determine what is right, fair, just, honest, and responsible in human conduct. So, what would an ethical tax system look like? Well, it would be a tax system that is more consistent with ethical principles such as fairness, honesty, transparency, equal treatment, respect for privacy, limited coercion, and protection of human dignity. The current income payroll tax system requires every American to report the details of his or her earnings, deductions, investments, business expenses, family status, and financial life to the federal government every year on a tax return. Now, this is some of the most sensitive and private data we have. Under an ethical tax system, that's none of the government's business. Enforcement requires government inspection, forced disclosure, and the presumption that citizens must prove that they've paid enough. A tax system that requires constant surveillance of private income is inherently disrespectful of personal liberty. That's not ethical. Now, the FAIRtax takes a different approach. It taxes consumption, not productivity. Under the FAIRtax, Americans would no longer be punished for working, saving, investing, building a business, earning overtime, or improving their financial position. People would only be taxed when they choose to purchase new goods and retail services for final consumption. The FAIRtax does not penalize the creation of wealth. Now, almost everyone agrees that work and savings are socially beneficial activities. Taxing them discourages the very conduct that strengthens families and the economy. The FAIRtax is also more transparent. Under the income payroll tax, much of the tax burden is hidden inside payroll withholding, corporate taxes, compliance costs, and embedded taxes in the prices we pay. Now, many Americans never see the full cost of the federal tax system. The FAIRtax would make the tax visible at the cash register. Voters would know exactly what the federal government costs them. Transparency is an ethical virtue because democratic consent is meaningful only when citizens can see the burden that's being imposed on them. The present income tax also gives Washington enormous power to reward favored groups and punish disfavored ones through deductions, credits, exemptions, phase-outs, audits, and special rules. The present income payroll tax system guarantees lobbying, manipulation, and political favoritism. The FAIRtax would greatly reduce that power by applying one broad national retail sales tax with a universal prebate to protect basic consumption. The FAIRtax would be a simpler, broader-based tax system that would be less vulnerable to corruption and special interest engineering. In conclusion, almost all Americans agree that a government should raise the revenue it needs in the least coercive, least invasive, and most transparent manner possible. By that ethical standard, the FAIRtax is far superior to the present income payroll tax system. The FAIRtax is more ethical than the present federal income tax system because it treats citizens as free individuals rather than as financial subjects to the government. The FAIRtax is more than just a proposal for a retail sales tax. It's a fundamental restructuring of the federal fiscal structure. Unlike other excise taxes, which are normally applied to specific products and in different percentage amounts, the FAIRtax applies a 23% inclusive rate to all new retail products and retail services. The FAIRtax better protects privacy and human dignity. It will allow Americans to live without filing an annual income tax return or fearing an intrusive audit from the IRS. The FAIRtax is the answer. The FAIRtax is a national retail sales tax on the retail purchase of new goods and services. It provides a family credit so that all purchases up to the poverty level for each family are not taxed. There is no withholding from your paycheck, and you never have to file a tax return again telling the government how much you earned and how much you spent. Plus, you'll never be harassed by the IRS ever again because the FAIRtax abolishes the IRS. Now, many of you have labored tirelessly for freedom from the federal income tax and the IRS. You deserve a great deal of credit for your efforts to educate the American people on the need to fund the American government in a way that's good for America and returns freedom to the American people. It's imperative, though, that we don't replace the current income tax and the IRS with an alternative system that could still be manipulated by the ruling elite. We must let Congress and the President know that the best way to replace the income tax and the IRS is with the FAIRtax. Now, make no mistake about it. The FAIRtax is a grave threat to the ruling elites. It will strip them of their power and their ability to control us through the tax system. Their opposition to the FAIRtax will be fierce and unrelenting. And don't think for an instant they won't use half-truths, deception, and downright lies in their desperate attempts to hang on to their power. However, with the support of this president, we can finally eliminate the income tax and the IRS. Of course, the best course of action is not only to repeal the income tax and abolish the IRS, but to repeal the 16th Amendment as well, so no future administration can ever shackle the American people with an income tax again. We must come together and ensure that real tax reform, the FAIRtax, is not subverted by the elites in D.C. This will take the diligent effort from all of us. We need your financial assistance, and we need your grassroots assistance. Now, if you have contacts that will allow us to get more information about the FAIRtax to President Trump, please let us know. Please email us at info@fairtax.org, and we'll give you some options on how you can best help us. At a minimum, please call your congressional representatives and ask if he or she supports the FAIRtax. If so, thank him or her for their support and suggest they become a co-sponsor of H.R. 25 if they're not one already. If not, ask why not. Now, if your representative claims to be unfamiliar with the FAIRtax, offer to have someone come to their office and explain it to them. The solution? Pass the FAIRtax. Now, why would D.C. pass the FAIRtax and give up an almost unlimited source of donations? Well, they won't, at least not voluntarily. The only way they will is if the rest of us demand it. Isn't it time to end this ludicrous tax collection system and the IRS along with it? Help us bring about real tax reform and stop future IRS abuses. By contributing or investing $10.40 a month, you help provide a financial base to Americans for fair taxation. Now, if you can make larger contributions/investments, these will be used not for salaries, as we're all volunteers, but for the needed updates to our economic studies, which will be vital for all future years. Please go to FAIRtax.org to invest in AFFT and help us pass the FAIRtax. It's an investment in your and your family's future.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the FAIRtax and learn why the FAIRtax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at FAIRtax.org.